It did kind of spark something in me. It's probably the first time I realized that I had that, especially looking back.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time I saw that there was something in there that wanted to go make something where there wasn't something. But if you love what you're doing, it doesn't even feel like work. If we can get this story out on PBS or out on, streaming services that anybody could see, I think it will do us good as ranchers to have that story put out there.
Welcome back to the Wealthy Cowboy Show. Today we have on Lee Wells, and I've been listening to a lot of Lee's stuff. He's got a podcast, and he's an author, a speaker, on social media a lot. And I would, knowing a little bit about him now, I would almost say you're a serial entrepreneur. all the different businesses that you've been in.
Yeah. Yep.
If you would, and I just listened to this story a while ago about your first experience in entrepreneurship when you were a kid. If you would kind of tell that story and then progress of what all you've done.
I think you're talking about the one we raided the dumpster. Mm-hmm. Is that the one?
Yeah.
I was little. I was probably, I don't know, second, third grade, something like that. I saw a bunch of stuff someone had thrown away. I guess they were cleaning out a building or something. And so I set it all up. The racks were still in the dumpster and everything. I pulled it all out, set it all up out there on the road, and was going to go sell it to everybody. My dad came out and saw us, and he said, "What are y'all doing playing in the trash?" I said, "Dad, this is good stuff." He said, "Throw that back in the dumpster. We got to go." But I think the reason I told that story was I saw something spark something early in me that when you see value, when you see a place to jump in and do something, don't be afraid to do it, because you never know. And of course, that's not the only failed attempt I made at trying to make $1. But it did kind of spark something in me. It's probably the first time I realized that I had that, especially looking back. Mm-hmm. That was the first time I saw that there was something in there that wanted to go make something where there wasn't something. And I think that's what entrepreneurship is.
Yeah, you're always looking at opportunities, and you see trash or something undervalued or a problem that somebody has, and there's a gap there, and you try to go fill it.
Jump on it.
And sometimes you can spread yourself too thin and kind of be looking at too much instead of just focusing on one thing. But I think that's a lot of people I've had on, and that's how I look at stuff. Like, and I've learned to kind of sit back and say, there's an opportunity there. Somebody should go do it, but it's not going to be me.
At some point, you got to limit what you do. Yeah. We can certainly get too thin, and I think that's part of the learning curve too. Is probably most of us have gotten ourselves too thin and realized how to back off of it.
Yeah.
Let somebody else help us.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a good team now and I try to build good teams to help me get things done. And I realize my limitations, and some of the things that we do is the first step is find where to plug holes of where I can't do something or I can't do it well. Mm-hmm. So I try to find someone that can do it better than me to come in and help me with that, so I can go do something that maybe I'm better at than somebody else. So yeah,
it's something that a lot of people, when they start a business, like, we think that we're going to get our buddies together and we got this good idea and we're going to go do it, and we all think the same, and then you got to go hire people, and or you don't know what you're doing over here on this part of it, and then really you're supposed to hire like the opposite of you.
Right.
So you have this strength, this guy has this strength, this guy has this strength.
Right.
But it's you want to do it with all your buddies and all the people that are like-minded. But
I tell you what, the first thing I did when I opened the restaurant that I have is I found a CPA. That was number one. I hate paperwork. I can do numbers. I just don't want to sit down and do it. Mm-hmm. And so I knew day one that was going to be my first hire, was somebody that loves numbers and can keep me away from the IRS. That's my guy.
Yeah, that's pretty important. What were So what was your path after say you come out of high school? I can't remember. There were several different things you got into, but if you would kind of walk through that.
Well, first of all, I have a degree in electronics engineering and went that way right out of college and worked in telecom, MCI, WorldCom.
What do you think sparked that? Like, you kind of grew up in a cowboy ranching background.
I'll tell you, we had a dairy farm for the years that I was in elementary, middle school, up into high school. And I told my dad, I'm going to get a degree because I'm not doing this. I was not going to be a dairy farmer. And we had a lot of laughs about that afterwards. But I went into technology because I really didn't want to do the dairy side. I learned a lot doing that, learned cattle, learn calving, learn nutrition. There's a whole lot to learn in dairy farming that you might not even get to know in general ranching. So there was a lot of good education there, work ethic, twice a day, every day, 365, and that's no breaks. But I didn't want to do that. And so I went into technology, got into that for a while. I'm old enough to know that first tech bubble burst. And when that happened in about 01, somewhere in there, the company I was working for shut down, filed bankruptcy, and I had to stay on. They paid me well to stay on, and I knew where all the bodies were buried and knew where all the equipment was. And by the time I got out of that contract with them, all the jobs were taken, frozen. There was nowhere to go. So my brother and I started our first company, and we did erosion control. And my biggest contract was with waste management. And so we were revegetating the slopes on landfills. You talk about a stinky job. I mean, that's just a trashy job.
Yeah.
And made good money, though. And that was going very well until a little after 9/11. We had another crash. For those that remember, after 9/11, the economy just folded up, and no one was building, and even Waste Management brought their contracts inside to stay afloat. So we lost that business, and so I talk about that in my book, and I talk about that openly, that I know what losing is like. And I think when you lose everything, it puts an appreciation and a respect in you. For the dollar and for your future, and to not get too far out there, overextended, too much risk. You have to always take risk, but I think that there's some learning that happens hard when you lose. And so I believe I've been a better business owner, better entrepreneur since that. But that was my first go at my own company, and it was going great until the world collapsed around us, and
really, it's kind of an uncontrollable thing.
It really was. It doesn't take the sting out of your heart when you fail at something. Just being honest, blaming the government or blaming politics or blaming the economy. But it is. You're right. I mean, I've looked at it a million ways over the years, and I don't know a way that we could have avoided it. But it still happens, and you still learn, and you still have to, whether it's your fault or not, you still have to pick up the pieces, and you take your wife and your baby, and you go back home, live with your mom and dad. It's humbling to live through that, but it's also an education that money can't buy. So I wouldn't trade it today for anything. I think it makes a person a better person, but it is tough. It's still tough to live through it.
Yeah, you either win or you learn, and it's not a loss is a loss, but you probably got some experience and, like you said, learned a lot of lessons out of it.
It was painful. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
I take every measure I can not to see that happen again. And of course, we don't know what the future is. We don't know the future of our economy now. But you be cautious and, watch what you're doing as best you can, make the best decisions you can. After that, I got back on my feet. I went to work for some other people back in technology, doing some tech work and just contracting, just putting food on the table and just regaining some footsteps. And, that's what you do. You just rebuild. So I did that. got a great wife who's an RN. She's always there to help and work. And so together we built our life back to a place where we were on our own again. And, life just keeps going. Opportunities keep popping. And I never quit looking at what tomorrow could be. So from there, I started in doing some speaking and traveled full time for about 7 years, speaking and on the road. And then got into some more technology stuff. Had a film company. We did. I built a TV truck, and we put cameras like you have here into places for conferences, conventions, and when you go to a concert or somewhere, and the big screens have the big images up there that everyone can see, we would shoot all of that around and put it up there for them to see. And back then, we would actually we started streaming. Back we were one of the first to start live streaming events, and so that's led to my hunger really to get back in the cattle business. My father passed away, and Mom called me one day and said, "You got to come take care of this place. I can't even mow the yard." Plus, she didn't want to be out there without Dad. So started looking at what was there, the debt, the equipment, what ran and what didn't. Most of it didn't, and so just started a rebuild process with the ranch. And one day I was driving back into Rockwall from the ranch, and it hit me that people aren't eating the beef that I grew up eating. And I know that sounds simple, but that hit me pretty hard driving down the road. I thought, I bet there's a place for whole ground beef. And that's what, on a dairy farm, when you have a cow that go down, giving birth, or they'll stretch tendons out or whatever. Back in the day, you could take that put it on a trailer and take it to the butcher, and you couldn't sell it even then, but you could use it at the house. They'd butcher it for you. And now you can't do that. It's got to be ambulatory and all that.
Yeah.
But back then, you could take that cow up there. It was healthy other than stretched tendons and ligaments or whatever, and so we had whole ground beef. So all the cuts ground together. It was the best hamburger meat you ever ate. And so it hit me one day that there's probably a market for that. And then just add in, grass finished and no hormones, and you start going down the list of what you can do different, pasture raised, out on grass and on the ranch. And I put a little marketing package together and sold my first cow before I ever took it to the butcher, just on Facebook talking about it. And from there, we started selling beef. We did that for about a year.
When was this? Was this around COVID?
17. That was 17.
So it was before even the big craze came.
Yeah. 17. My father died in 17, and we started about August, about this time of year, started selling beef. And then that next year, we were in a position, had an opportunity to open a burger restaurant ourselves. And so that's where Wells Cattle Company came from, the burger place. And we just celebrated 6 years of selling burgers. So that's kind of the nutshell version of my journey. And of course, there's a lot more to all of that. Last year I wrote a book and then started a podcast. And so then we got the
Ranch and Table podcast.
Ranch and Table.
And it's not just about beef and food. I mean, I listened to a bunch of them. You talk about marketing, you talk about business, and lots of just lessons you've learned throughout your journey.
Right. I started the podcast really to talk about the book and kind of put legs under the book I wrote, which the book is about that journey of starting that beef company and then how it became a restaurant, some of the things we do at the restaurant that's different, our culture. And so I started the podcast just to bring guests in and talk to them about their business and what we have in common in business, and expose others to concepts and ideas that work for people. And then the other thing is to talk about portions of the book and let people know, if they're not going to read the book, at least they can get the content of it. Because I haven't had time to sit down and do an audio version of it. So anyway, that's why I started it. And then we ended up bringing in different guests and having a good time just talking about whatever, kind of like this, just talking about whatever. It's kind of evolved into what it is. I'm on a break right now for that. We'll call it season 1 is complete. 31 sessions there. We'll pick up season 2 here shortly, but I've been busy with another project.
Yeah. So. Before we get into that, I want to go back. I mean, you have to have a very good mindset to keep going, because you got a job, you did the typical, you weren't an entrepreneur, you just did the typical go to school, get a degree, get a job. That deal got taken away from you. So you're like, okay, I'm going to go out on my own, build my own company. That got taken away from you. And then starting back over from nothing, you had to build back. So like, what was your mindset for all that to not be broken? I've tried both ways. Neither one worked, but you went back to the entrepreneur side.
That's a hard question. We could probably dig into that for a few hours. A simple answer is I've never lost hope. I've been knocked down. You get knocked out sometimes. Sometimes you're laying there wondering how you're going to get up from this. But I never lost hope. And I have always had the hope that I could survive and we were going to survive. Again, you never know the future. You never know how well something's going to work or not work. So I guess just never giving up. And I know that sounds cliche, but that's just it. I mean, if you rodeoed, you get knocked down, you get the air knocked out of you, you get something busted up, but you just get back up. You don't quit. And for whatever reason that is in you, you get back up. And so I would just tell people to find that reason. For me, I have a wife that believes in me, and I had a daughter. At the time I lost everything there, she was about 2 or 3, somewhere in there. So every time I'd come home to that smiling face, she didn't know what was going on. She's just happy to see her dad. And so those things put it in perspective that I'm going to keep going. We're going to keep doing whatever comes around to do, and we're going to build a life. And then we had another daughter after that, and those 2 girls are my world, and we're just not going to stop. Just going to keep on rolling. So I don't know what it is for individuals. I think everyone has their set of ideas that they get up for in the morning, but I just never, quitting was just never an option.
Yeah.
I think that's just the bottom line.
That's, I don't know either. Like, that's always been my mindset of like, it wasn't necessarily a loss. We're going to change what we're doing, go into another venture. We're not successful yet, but it's coming. It's coming, and being very optimistic.
That's hope, man. Just keep your hope. Yeah. Keep your hope.
Which it's like it's got pros and cons, because I just go and try stuff. Maybe it'll work. Maybe we'll learn something. We'll see. But it pushes me in new directions a lot, and there's risk involved. But if it works, then it's a good deal. It can be a good deal. So
I think that we learn over time. You hope to learn what risks are worth taking and which risks are not worth taking. And I think that's part of the wisdom of learning what an entrepreneur should be doing. And you kind of refine that down. And I think as you move on, maybe you make better choices as you go. And I can see, looking back, that I've made some choices that were, maybe I shouldn't have done it. I don't know that I would have known that, except for hindsight. But, it sure makes you careful when you move forward off of those things. And so hopefully there's some wisdom in growing up and going through those. But yeah, it's you just never lose hope. You never quit. You always got something to live for, and other people to live for, and other things to accomplish, for sure.
Yeah, I think just like you said, just look at it like I always look at it like it's going to happen one day. Like it's going to click. It's all going to click one day in whatever area that is. And then in the meantime, you just got to just be happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like you
Absolutely.
said, you got your family, and everybody's got something to look up to and look forward to.
Yeah. I had real good parents, good parents. My mom's still with us. A good support structure as far as growing up, balanced. Things hadn't always go well, but they were always there for you. And so, everyone's different in their perspective of life. I think successful people in general keep that positivity going. Somehow they find a way to get up and keep pushing and believing that what they're doing is going to be worth doing, and they believe in it. I think if they've got that down deep, they'll probably see some success.
Yeah. And then, so moving on, you kind of, you built back up from that, and then had, tragedy happen with your dad dying. And then I think a lot of times, our family puts together, you put together a dairy farm and turned into a ranch and all that. And, but a lot of times, like you kind of mentioned, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs, but it can be a burden that you're getting. Like, you've got all this equipment that's broke, and you got debt that you inherit and all these things. And so it wasn't like this big gift you got, but you got a job to do.
Yeah.
And how did you have to take a lot of that creativity, I guess, you get from like real world perspectives? Like, when I say real world, like not ranching, type, we kind of think small minded a lot, but it seems like you had to kind of blend it, especially, you come up with selling your own beef before everybody started doing that. Like, what was your mindset there whenever that happened, where you're like, I'm just going to figure out how to make this thing work? Synex Direct Wholesale delivers tires all across Texas at wholesale prices. It doesn't matter if you're a farmer needing a large tractor tire, a truck driver needing semi-tires, or a tire shop needing a better supplier. They can help you get any tire you need at wholesale prices and bring them directly to you. Check out Synex Direct Wholesale for great service and low prices, and they are processing payments with us at Diversified Payments.
Well, I remembered when Mom called me and said, and this is a long story condensed for this, but when she said, this is too big, you're going to have to come help figure this out. I don't think I've ever talked about this, but there was about $80,000 to $100,000 in outstanding debt right then that had to be flipped. And so I wasn't really given a gift other than the land. I was given a job to do.
And a lot of times people just would sell it just to pay the debt off.
The
and
reason
then not have anything.
That land means more to me than anyone would understand. And the reason that it does is I grew up on it. I grew up out there. I know every inch of it, been all over it. And I'm never closer to my dad than when I'm on that land. There's a memory for every square inch of that land out there with him. And so it's not dirt to me. It's something much more than that. And I also watched them make those payments as a kid. And that was first. They took care of the church stuff. They paid their tithes. They were good people. Then they paid that land payment. And I watched that. And there would be times where we didn't get to go out to eat for a while because we had to make the land payment. And as a kid, that puts some value in me that I didn't even realize. And so when it came around and he passed away, and that's a whole long story in itself. We don't have time for today, but when that happened, of course, you get phone calls before the body's even cold. You got phone calls. Y'all ready to sell? And I was fielding calls all day long for weeks. People trying to buy the land, and it just put a resolve in me that we're going to make this work. We're going to figure this out. And so I had to get creative and sell off some equipment. Of course, we had to sell his cattle. and start over. And other than the land itself, we didn't have a whole lot to work with there. So you had to literally build back equipment, cattle, everything from scratch to get to where we are today, which is crazy to think about. It is.
And what was your business model going in when you were rebuilding? Like, was it from the start, we're going to raise and sell beef and do that? Or
when I got that idea going down the road that day, it shifted to that. Before it was just, we're holding on to this land, whatever we're going to do, we're going to do that. And then, it kind of just develops, vision just kind of develops. The mission statement builds itself as you continue forward. And that's kind of what happened to us is we just, you start out with you get this cow that's ready to go and put it up for sale. And within a couple of weeks, I had all of that meat sold, and then you just keep growing from there, really. And now we buy out herds of cattle at a time when they come available. And it just, to get from there to here, it's just been a constant growth. And I don't know, man, I guess I need to write another book, because I hadn't really thought about all that in that depth.
Yeah.
But it's just, a lot of times it's day to day. You're just working as you can, what you have to do, you get it done. And then growth happens when you're doing something the best that you can do it. And then providing a product that people really appreciate kind of helps that process as well.
Yeah. And then the restaurant concept, my dad, he's been saying this for years, like, what if you could, have your herd of cows and then take them all the way through, have a calf, wean them, feed them out, and then process them and have I think a burger restaurant is probably the most sustainable, because you can make everything a ground beef. Mm-hmm. You can't make everything a steak, so right. You'd have a bunch of throwaway stuff. But that was kind of his concept, and it's cool to see that that's what you're actually doing. So how did you progress into that? You were selling the beef, and then the restaurant deal came about.
So we were selling beef. We had pickup, drop offs. We never did the co-op thing, but we did have a couple days a week where people could come by our warehouse and pick up, and it got to be pretty good size just doing that. And I was taking beef out to a couple local restaurants and said, hey, I think there's a market in our town for a burger like this. Try this beef and get back with me. And I did that to about 3 or 4 different restaurants. And one of them was a spot downtown, a couple ladies owned, and they weren't doing real good. I mean, they weren't just killing it, but we'd eaten there a few times, and it was good. So I came in one day and had a burger there, and then left them a couple pounds of meat. And I said, hey, try this out. I think you could really do well with this. And they called me back about a week later, and they said, man, that was the best burger. That was the best meat we ever had. But they were older, and they said, we don't feel like we can just start marketing a new thing at this point at our age. And I said, cool. And I just ran on. And a few months after that, I was out of town doing a video shoot and with our video truck. And this lady called. She said, you don't remember me probably, but you came by the restaurant. And I said, of course I know who you are. She said, we're going to retire. Would you be interested in doing your concept here and buying us out? So as soon as I got home, we met and we drew up a deal on a napkin, and she had a little notepad, and she was writing notes and I was taking notes, and we kind of sketched out this buyout thing and it ended up being the building and everything. And so we leased to own for a couple of years, and it just worked out. It just kind of fell into our lap, if you could say it that way. Mm-hmm. And so we just started. We just did it. And I think what one of the things that helped us be successful was I was very vocal about, this is our first restaurant. We don't know what we're doing. Give us some time. Let us figure it out with you. And it didn't stop the bad reviews from coming in. They still do. That's a whole different story right there. Listen to that podcast one day. I'll get into reviews, but I think being honest with folks and just saying, hey, if you'll give us a shot, we'd like to take this beef from our ranch and give it to you like this. And overall, for the most part, the community just opened their arms to us, and they just said, yeah, we'll go on this journey with you. And that was really cool to see a whole community just give us the space to develop this restaurant to what it is. Now we're one of the number one restaurants. We've won multiple awards and, been nominated for all kinds of stuff. And it's just an honor. It's an honor. But I think being honest with folks really gave us the platform to figure it out and gave us some space to get it to where we could provide a consistent product over it. But that's how it happened. It just kind of happened, We were looking at another restaurant location outside of town, right out there by where we were just talking about on 276. And the guy made me so mad. The guy called me, his son called me right before we were going to sign the paperwork. And he said, hey, we changed our mind. And boy, I tell you, I'm a handshake guy.
Yeah.
I'm a handshake guy. You say something, that's all you need to say. Like, I don't even need you to write it down. We got it. We're going to do it. Mm-hmm. We're pretty old school. But for him to just say, hey, you know what? We decided we're not doing that. We're doing something else. I was ticked. But, in hindsight, again.
It was a blessing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. To be downtown, Rockwall is a privilege. That's no joke. For me to be downtown in that environment, in that restaurant culture that's down there is amazing. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't trade it. We outgrew that spot within 6 months, and we added on as much as we could add on, as much as the city would let us. And we outgrew it as soon as we had it. We still outgrow it. We still have to hold the line up and say, hey, guys, we'll be back with you to take your order in a minute. There's nowhere to sit down. And that happens about several times every Saturday, just hang on, we'll get you. We outgrew that place. But to be there and to be in that culinary culture that's in downtown Rockwall, if people listening have not done that, not been down there to see those restaurants, they're almost all chef-owned restaurants, and they are top-notch. And we just try to fit in right there with these guys that are culinary geniuses that have degrees from,
and y'all keep it simple, right?
We do.
Pretty simple menu from what I've seen.
We do burgers. We've added Wagyu dogs, and we center our menu around the beef, around our beef. And then, of course, we brought that dog in. That Wagyu comes from a neighboring ranch out there, so it's not ours. But we do an Angus cross cattle is what we mainly raise. And we like right now we're into Charolais, so we got a bunch of Charolais cross. And but we've done all kinds of bulls, just trying to do the best output for us. But we don't raise Wagyu. So that's an added thing. And then we also do a chicken burger, a pasture-raised chicken burger. And that's the core of the menu. And then the homemade desserts is something that we really specialize in. We have 6 or 8, depending on the day, different desserts that we make there, and hand-cut fries. So we just try to do everything we can to make that experience the best that it can. One of the greatest compliments we ever get is it feels like we're eating at your house. It feels like we came out to the ranch and had a burger with you. And I think that's what we try to do, make people feel at home. Mm-hmm. We make 5 sauces every day, scratch. So everything that we do is scratch made or custom ordered in to be a very specific thing that we're offering. It's very intentional. What we do is very intentional.
Yeah.
Down to the beef tallow that we fry our fries in.
And that's what I was going to get to is like y'all are using beef tallow and you source all your products and try to keep it local and know where it comes from.
Yeah, our ice cream comes from a creamery right up the street in Faith. They're amazing folks. They go to Vegas every year and bring home national or international prizes every year for their ice cream. And we get the privilege of having them right next door. One of the biggest tea blending facilities that I know of. They supply to tea stores. Tivana, I think, was one that I don't know if they changed the name on that, but they ship all over the country, and they're right there in Rockwall. So our tea is locally sourced from them. I mean, we get some of the best local stuff. That's, I mean, better than you can find anywhere else. I've been to these other restaurants, high end chef. I won't name any names, but I've tried their burgers, and there's just something real special about the beef that we produce, and having all those prime cuts in it. It produces the most premium beef that you'd put on a burger, I would say, in the world.
Yeah,
that's just, I know that's a big statement, but I've tried burgers from all the fancy places, man.
Yeah, I think, like, I eat mostly carnivore, so and steak used to be like one of my favorite meals, but now hamburger meat is like, I don't know, I just like that a lot. Like, I cook that all the time at the house, and just make some patties and grill them. But I mean, I love mine, like my beef. It's just, it has different tastes. I'll go get it at fast food places or whatever, and it never tastes the same. But you do, like you said, you even go to the fancy places, and if you do get a burger at a fancy place, it's almost like they try too hard. It's like they don't have just like a regular burger. It's like some kind of crazy deal.
They dress up. The way I explain that is, from my perspective, the beef is pretty much the same no matter where you go, because they're getting their beef pretty much from the same source that's out there. Unless they're bringing it in specific from a ranch, it's going to come through Cisco. It's going to come through Benny Keith. It might be 44 Farms, but it's mass-produced stuff, right? It's not going to be very special, because really it's just chuck. And chuck is pretty much chuck on just about any four-legged animal that stands there. So there's not really much you can do with that. You might grill it, or you might flame broil it, or you might do something like that, mix something into it. But really they're counting on the bread and the toppings to be the flavor.
Yeah.
And so the bread selection, and then what toppings, if it's going to be mayonnaise, mustard, or if it's going to be peaches and bacon, or whatever they're going to do to stand out, it's going to be in that. And we are the opposite. We do have some crazy combinations on our burgers for people who want that, but it always comes back to spotlighting our beef. So any of my burgers, there's a reason those ingredients are there, and the highlight is going to be the beef, which is why we do a pretty good sized patty in that burger. Yeah.
And I mean, I've heard, I haven't done a lot of research on it, but I've heard at the fast food places you're getting, the beef is coming from, a bunch of different animals. It's not like each patty's from one calf.
Well, I think that's probably true for most of the beef that people eat. I think that's probably true for grocery store beef as well. It's probably they've done studies, and there's big numbers that people can talk about, X number of head of cattle, DNA in each one of those. But I think that's probably the process that most beef goes through. Most beef hits a dock. Most ground beef hits a dock, comes out on the other side pretty quick, and maybe go through a blast chiller or something. But it's pretty much a pretty quick turnaround. And I don't want to quote wrong information, but it's pretty much back up to one dock, and they're backing up to the other dock to take it out.
Yeah.
Within some hours there. And we do a 7-day dry age on ours. We do certain things to our beef that your hamburger meat in the store is never going to have, or even at a restaurant, it's never going to have. So there's a lot of things we could get into that we do specific, very intentional, to make that burger the world-class burger that it is.
Yeah, I think it's, that beef makes just a huge difference. Like you said, most of the places you go, me just eating the patty, it really tells the truth on what you're getting, and a lot of times it's not much flavor or anything to it.
Yeah, nothing to hide it. Yeah.
I mean, pretty much most fast food places are the same, but like at home, you usually make a big thick patty. My mom makes real flat, real thin ones, and I really like those too. But it's that they just got that home taste.
We haven't had grocery store meat in years at our place. We butcher for the ranch, and my ranch guys get beef anytime they want, from that freezer, and we get beef for the house out of that freezer, and then when we need it, we'll get another one. And we hadn't bought beef in years. Don't ever plan on it.
Yeah.
Again.
And then another aspect of that is the fries and the tallow. I saw that's what McDonald's used to be, and that's why they stood out so much. That's why they were so good. And they switched to vegetable oil, and now they put a bunch of stuff in there to make it taste like it used to.
Right.
But what was the deal with that? Like, where'd you come up with that?
Well, I think the revelation over the last year to 5 years about seed oils being not real good for you, and the way that they reconstitute that seed oil from the source, and it's just not a real healthy process. And so vegetable oil in general, it is what it is. I don't know that we'll get away from it in society, but for our place, we went to beef tallow just because it's a single ingredient. It is it's healthier, it's cleaner. It's something that we can say with assurance it hasn't been, fermented and brought back, or, and bleached, or whatever, happens to seed oils. It is what it is. And so if that's what someone wants, then they can come have it. If they don't eat beef or whatever, then that's fine too,
Are y'all using y'all's tallow from the...
No, it's not ours. We use all of ours in our beef. When you do a whole grind, it takes, for the most part, that fat cap and everything that's there to make an 80-20, because there's so much muscle that you're grinding up when you put all of that in. So it usually takes all of our beef and fat ratioed out. And so we typically take in 3 head at a time to be butchered every couple of weeks. We'll take in 3 at a time, and they'll make the management decision there at the butcher as to how much each of those carcasses need, and they'll blend, or they'll make it work out for us using just our animals. But right now we're about 35,000 pounds of ground beef a year through that one location, so keeps us busy.
And are y'all still selling the individuals and everything?
We sell our whole ground beef, the ground beef. We sell that. We don't sell any cuts.
Yeah,
we just can't keep up with cuts.
Yeah,
it's too much.
You're just so you're selling the whole ground beef, and then also selling it in your restaurant.
Yeah. So you can come to the restaurant, order a burger, we'll cook it for you, and on the way out you can grab as many 1-pounders as you want to take home. We do that. Some of our we also do a chorizo, beef chorizo there. We have some items there as well, liver and oxtail and tongue, bones. We have some stuff while it lasts. It doesn't last very long, but yeah, we sell it there in a case for people to take home.
Yeah. I think it's just a cool concept that you've come up with, just like an old school restaurant. You know who the owners are, you know who's working, you know where the meats and all the products are coming from. You can buy the stuff out front. Whole experience.
We're old school.
Yeah.
I tell people this is the way that burgers probably used to taste, and a lot of our older customers, they'll say that. They'll say, I haven't had a burger like this since I was a kid. This reminds me of burgers when I was a kid. And if you think about it, that makes sense, because nowadays they have somewhere for every single cut to go. Back when those folks were young, they didn't have Mexican restaurants with skirt steak as fajitas, right? So a lot of that skirt steak probably went in. They didn't have brisket. They didn't have barbecue restaurants needing briskets by themselves, so that probably went in. The beef ribs, and if you just go down the cow, go down those cuts, we have a spot for every, butchers and producers have a place, processors have a place for every single cut to go. Back in the day, they didn't, and so their meat was more whole, their ground beef was more whole than what it is now. And I think that's what those folks are picking up on, is that flavor that they remembered from when they were younger, when they used to process cattle differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even at your house, you may not want all that in your freezer. You may just want ribeyes and fillets and, whatever you pick, and then the rest goes into hamburger meat. Yeah. Well, that makes your hamburger meat better at the house.
Yeah, if you put the better cuts in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Let's talk about what your recent project you had going on with the bad things that happened in the Panhandle with the fires, and just devastated it up there. I went up there and took one little load of feed that we kind of put together in our community, and took it to Canadian at the drop-off deal. And I mean, it was heartbreaking and heart-filling at the same time, because it was just devastation on the whole countryside up there, seeing everything burn up, but also all the people that were just pouring in there to help. And that whole center, that whole warehouse was filled with stuff, and y'all captured that.
We March 1st, I had a buddy of mine from Rockwall, Kevin Busher. He called me. He said, Lee, I need to get a load put together. I'm going. And he's a buddy of mine that does my dozer work, and he's used to fight fires on dozers for years. And he was watching all the groups that he's in, and they were saying, this is bad. This is bad. And so he called me and he said, hey, have you seen what's going on? I said, a little bit of it, but I stay pretty busy, and just being honest, I hadn't really focused on it. And he said, you need to look at it. And I need to get a load right now this weekend. I'm going. So I made a few calls. We ended up, between him and I, filling up his 40-foot gooseneck, and he drove out there, and he sent me a picture back of his arm around a guy, and he said, first time this guy smiled in a few days, he lost everything. And then he ended up spending that night loading out trucks out of Oklahoma that were hauling back in to Wheeler, and just, it hit me, man, it hit me hard. I started paying attention to it and seeing the stories and connecting with people out there. And I went to work to help collect from our area north of Dallas and send out. And so we ended up coordinating over 1,200 bales of hay and 500,000 pounds of feed and 5 miles of fence. It ended up being over $325,000 worth of help, $335,000 worth of value sent out there to help them. And in the middle of all of that, one night I just had this idea. I'm going to take a camera with me, and on this load, I'm going to take a camera crew, and we're going to go at least capture the footage of the devastation, or the roadside, or maybe put a drone in the air and capture some of these places that are burned up. And I don't know. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I started making phone calls and getting. First couple guys, no, I'm busy. No, I'm in Atlanta. No, I can't. All my camera guys, my tech guys, and I started just going down the list of friends that I had. I said, hey, jump in the truck with me and tell me what it costs to go out there for a day. And Peter is one of the. I never thought he'd say yes. He's a fantastic camera guy, just a fantastic guy. He said, I can't go tomorrow. He said, but if you'll wait, I'll go with you the day after. I said, deal. So 4:00 in the morning, he rolls in, we load up, and we start heading that way with a load of feed, and ended up getting 7 interviews in that 2-day period. Well, we made it a 2-day period. Mm-hmm. out 7 hours all day long. We got in the truck about midnight and drove back. So however many days that ends up being without sleep. And so we got those interviews, and on the way back, we were talking about it, and people sat across their kitchen table and opened up to me because I'm a rancher, and they knew I was pulling feed out there to them. And something in that mix opened their heart to me and was able to have a conversation like this. And they started talking about the fire, and they started talking about what it was like to see that fire come across their place. And man, they started shedding tears and just opening up. And I'm sitting off camera, so no one sees me. I'm just asking and talking questions, like this. Mm-hmm. And they just start giving me this story that is unbelievable. It's powerful. And we're driving home. I mean, it's midnight, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning as we're driving. And we both agree, this is more than just a social media post. This is more than just a social media series or a podcast series or something. This is more. I don't know what it is yet. Well, a few more weeks went by. We took another trip out, and we took the cameras back out and set up and ran another set of interviews. Ended up total 12 interviews with people, ranchers that had been through the fire, lost everything, people coordinating like those centers that you dropped at, people like Kevin who took trips, and various people who took trips out just for free out of their own pocket like you did. And nobody paying their way. They're just going to help and coordinating and helping these supplies get out there. Anyway, we worked a deal with the Farmers Co-op up in Sulphur Springs with the mill. And the mill manager said, I'll provide feed at cost for this. And so he maximized every dollar we raised by doing that. They ended up taking 2 loads out for free. We coordinated, I don't know how many hundreds of guys with trucks and trailers that for free just grabbed a hold of a load and took it where we asked them to. And it just, to capture that on film, it was pretty cool. It was just really cool. And then we took a third trip out with a high-end drone that we rented, and a 4K setup, and flew their countryside and a lot of their terrain, which is amazing. When you turn north out of Amarillo, everyone thinks it's all flat. Yeah. Like Odessa, Midland, flat, But really, when you turn out of Amarillo and go north about an hour and a half, you end up in cap rocks and mesas and valleys and just amazing country, cowboy country. Mm-hmm. And you could shoot a movie up there. It's so beautiful. So we wanted to capture a lot of that and put it in to the film. And so we ended up bringing all that back and editing it into a hour-long documentary, hour and 5 minutes. And it's turned out to be pretty cool. We had the premiere almost 2 weeks ago out there in Pampa. Had about 400 folks there to see it. And I had grown men, ranchers, shaking as they shook my hand with their eyes red, thanking me for capturing and telling their story. And it was powerful. It was probably one of the most humbling things I've ever experienced, because I was just a guy going out trying to capture what people were doing and what was going on. Just part of the reason for that is our news kind of captured the big happening. The news story was big fire, and that was it. It died off. There wasn't a news story continuing. There wasn't a follow-up continuing on these men who had 8,000 miles of fence on their ranch burned down. 80 miles of fence, 50 miles of fence, 40 miles of fence. I mean, each of these places are so big out there. They've got to figure out how to come back, you know? And so to tell that story has been one of the coolest things I've ever got to do, hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah.
Besides doing my father's eulogy, I would say this was right there next to it as far as emotional toll. Sitting there literally weeping with people across from their kitchen table as they relive these events and happenings and trying to figure out what they're going to do next and how much loss, you know, when they start calculating how they're going to ever get out. And it's more than I ever thought it could be. And tomorrow we actually submit to Sundance Film Festival and see if it can do anything there, build a resume of its own. And then we go to South by Southwest, and we've got some other festivals picked out that we're going to let it run through and just see what happens with it. But it is it's very unique.
Yeah.
Very unique. I actually cut it. My editor and I cut it like a podcast. I guess I could talk about that here because we are here. But, you know, in a podcast, you'll cut a conversation back and forth instead of someone, even if I talk for 5 minutes straight, when you do a social clip of that or something, you'll cut you and I together talking. Well, even if someone talked for 10 minutes straight in the interview, we cut that to keep it interesting and to keep it bouncing back and forth. And so we have movement, a pretty quick clip throughout that documentary. A lot of documentaries, you watch someone sit in a chair and talk for a while, and then it goes to a drone shot for a long time with some music, and it comes back to another guy sitting out on his porch for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, all right, I want to hear what they're saying, but this needs to move.
It's not entertaining.
Let's go, you know? And so we actually cut this in a unique fashion from probably just from my experience of our day and time and our attention span to make it. So I have high hopes that it might actually get some attention there at these festivals just because it's so different. And it's all shot in 4K. It's cinematic, you know, sunrise, sunsets, sunbeams coming through, you know, over the calves' heads and through the horses' manes. I mean, it's all shot very cinematic. And most of your documentaries aren't. They're kind of flat. And so we did some things in this that I don't know that have ever been done before.
Yeah.
We ran it through a 4K AI program that on the grainy film from cell phones, we upgraded all of that with AI into a 4K image. Instead of a vertical image being a third of the screen, we moved it to 2/3 of the screen because you can do that with AI now and give a real clear picture. And instead of your eyes hurting because you went from a full screen down to a small vertical video, now we've got just a whole lot of things that we've done in there technically that I think might get some attention. So fingers crossed, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'd love for people to hear this story across the nation because it's a rancher story and it's a story that they don't ever get to tell. And so that's what's important to me, not necessarily the technical stuff. That's film festival talk, right?
Yeah.
Someone that's sitting there that understands all that.
But you have to do that stuff to get the message out there.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to get these rancher story from the panhandle of West Texas out to people who are vegans and people who are vegetarians and people who think their meat comes from a package in the store. I think that they need to be able to see, no, it comes from a guy who lives in a single wide out here who gives his whole life for this. And so you can eat beef or so you can have something on your table. And so it's a pretty powerful story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the media deal is something that we don't think of, but it's super important to go, you know, it happens all the time. I think, you know, I wish somebody was there to video this or that or take pictures of this or that and capture that memory. And then also like what you're doing, actually telling a story to promote our way of life, to bring awareness, educate, and and share people's stories. And
Yep.
it's something that, especially like as a rancher and a cowboy, you don't think about media stuff, but it's super important to have that. And a lot of times you wish you would have done something like that.
Well, we were very blessed as well because we weren't there during the fire, and there was some great people who allowed us use of their drone footage and allowed us use of their cell phone footage. And so that's part of a big project, trying to get those things and then getting them all signed off on waivers. And it's been a lot of work, but if we can get this story out on PBS or out on, streaming services that anybody could see, I think it will do us good as ranchers to have that story put out there.
And that's what I was going to ask you is how are we going to be able to see that? Is it, I guess it doesn't sound like you have a plan yet on how it's going to be released, but it's going to be released somehow. Most small businesses fail in the first 5 years of opening. There's a few issues that cause businesses to close. One is paying too much in overhead expenses. 2 is not getting enough customer traffic. And 3 is not converting enough of that traffic into sales. If you want to ensure success in your business, these issues must be addressed. Check out the link below and book a call with me to see how we can help keep your business open and thriving so you're not just another statistic.
When you do this, I'm learning as I go. I've never done anything like this, but from what I can gather, you have to let it run through its process and build a resume before it can have value. So a resume would be awards that it's won along the way, maybe for production, maybe for story, maybe overall documentary wins or something like that. So you put it through the film festivals to let the critics and various ones comment on it. And if you can gather some momentum there, that puts value into a distributorship where someone will say, I'll pay for that to go on Hulu, or I'll pay for that to go on. You can put that on Amazon and you can charge this much and we'll let you have this much back or whatever. So you have to do that from what I'm seeing, because I'm a nobody. If I were, if Taylor Sheridan brings it to a table, someone will probably just have a conversation right away. Mm-hmm. When Lee Wells brings it to the table, they're like, well, let's just see what it does, in this other process. So we're going through that process right now. And when we do have that resume built and it goes out, we'll start putting out where, for those that are in the Panhandle, we have a tour set up the last week of this month. So the last week in September, we're going to be in a different town each night across the Panhandle at a theater. So they'll be able to go see it. And that's on our website. We can give that info when you're ready for it. But they can go out and see it in the nearest town this coming month. But then in the Greenville area, the Dallas area, we're going to be in October 18th, 19th. We'll be in the theater there for people to come see it. And then streaming on network, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
We'll just have to see how that goes. It'll end up somewhere. I can always get it on Amazon 100%, if that's the right way to go. Mm-hmm. But we need to let it see if it can be something bigger, something on its own first. Mm-hmm. Because
and it's called We're Here.
We're Here. Yeah, We're Here is the name of it. And the website's We're Here Doc. So WeReHereDoc.com. So the We're Here documentary is We're Here Doc. And there's showtimes on there. There's a trailers on there. There's reaction video from those who saw it at the premiere, talking about it there. So we're just putting everything that relates to it as we go through this process there for folks to look at it, read about it, and see kind of where we are in the process.
Yeah, and you post on Facebook and social media.
I do, yeah. Lee Wells, my profile is probably the best place to go, just because that's where I update the most regularly, and that kind of catches everything. There's several pages, but really that's where I try to stay in communication. That's where the most followers are, so the most eyes. Yeah.
What are some lessons you've learned in your entrepreneurship journey? You've been in different aspects of it, different areas and businesses, and what are some of those lessons that you've learned along the way?
I think you have to love what you're doing. If you don't enjoy it, it's going to get old. It's going to get hard to get up for. So I think number one, you need to do something that you love, or find a way to love it, because life's too short to end up hating your day and hating having to deal with what you have to deal with, because every business is going to have ups and downs. Everything we do in life has negative and positive that goes with it. The best relationships in the world also have bad days. The best business in the world also has times where, you lose and you have to spend money you didn't want to spend too soon and too many times over. There's always the both things that are going to come along. I had a good friend of mine tell me one time, he said, life is like a train track. It's like trains. Back in the day, back in the 1800s, 1900s, trains, everyone was excited about trains coming in. It brought stuff they couldn't get, all these outside, even other countries, materials and merchandise that they could get a hold of. And the problem was that trains just don't bring good. They also brought criminals, and they brought other things that were not positive. And that's just the way life is. Life's like a train track. It's good and bad come in your life every day. And that's the lesson, is you got to be ready for whatever comes in that day, whether it's a blessing or whether it's something you're going to have to struggle through. But if you love what you're doing, it doesn't even feel like work. It doesn't feel like, God, I got to get up at this time and be here or be there. It's almost like you get to play every day, even with the negative that comes in. So that may even sound cliche, but I really do believe that if we can find what we're passionate about, what we feel like is going to bring value to others, and what we enjoy doing ourselves, there's a lot of good that we can do when we're enjoying what we're doing, rather than suffering through what we're doing. We talked about earlier, I wasn't cut out for the 8 to 5 desk job. I'm nothing against those who do that and enjoy that. Everyone's different. But I struggled with being at work on time and leaving, sitting there until it was time to leave. I mean, to me, that was silly. If I'm done with my work, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Yeah. Well, they don't like that. I'm paying you till 5, that kind of thing. So for me, it didn't work. It wasn't productive. When I got out of that, I was productive. Now I have a father-in-law who retired from the defense contractor arena. And that man was early to work and left late every day. And he built an amazing career, an amazing retirement. He loved what he did. He was very happy in that. So good for him. And it's okay that I don't, So I think everyone just needs to find where they belong and what they enjoy doing, find their place. And if you haven't, keep looking for those opportunities. Keep looking for those days that are going to yield something to try and to think and explore. And then the other thing, I think, when we talk about entrepreneurship, it's more than just those things. You have to be successful at it. And you have to find something that has a good profit margin. You have to find something that you can actually make a living on and you can actually take care of your family with. And so it's the next level is you have to find something that would actually make sense, that someone's going to buy, that someone's going to support you in, and it's going to support you enough to make a living. I think if you can get those ratios and those proportions down, it's a great way to live. It's a lot of fun. I love my life. I love being busy. I love doing these things. and I love serving other people in any way that I can. That's who I am, and I don't feel like I'm working, even though some days are 16 hours long.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm working. I'm just real tired when I go to bed.
Yeah. and like you said, like working hard on the wrong thing isn't going to get you any further. It's not going to make you wealthy or happy.
Right.
Just because you work hard doesn't mean anything. You got to work hard on the right thing.
The other cliche is work smarter, not harder, right? Mm-hmm. And I hate cliches. Here we are saying them, but there's some truth to them, and that's why people say them a lot. So you do have to work smart, and you have to use your time wisely. And if you're not careful, entrepreneurs can fall in the trap of wasting time. And that's a whole other discussion. We think wasting time is sitting on TikTok or sitting on, scrolling through reels or something, but you can waste a lot of time meeting with the wrong people, doing the wrong things during the day. Again, that's a whole other discussion, but trying to be conscious to not waste your time, I think, is one of the big things, because we don't have a boss sitting there saying, hey, get back to work. Hey, you're not going to get this done if you keep sitting here. And so it's on us to not let too many of those tasks pile up for tomorrow and the next day because we're doing the wrong things. We need to be able to see what path gets us where we need to go, and we need to say no to some things. We need to say, I can't get that done. I can't do that. Mm-hmm. That doesn't fit right now. And be honest about that with ourselves and others. I think that's a part that can trap us up if we're not careful.
Yeah. I mean, saying no, you hear a lot of high-level people, like at first you say yes to everything, every opportunity, and then once you get everything kind of figured out and zoned in, then you got to start saying lots of no's to just stay focused.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to do.
It's challenging because you don't want to be a jerk. I mean, nobody wants, some people are, but I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want to say no for the sake of being too important. But there's times where you have to call this. You have to set up your day the way it needs to be set up to be successful for you, to get done the things you need to get done. There were times, especially when I was working on the stuff out in the Panhandle, I had to just completely turn my phone off. A funny story real quick. I got so busy coordinating all this, that I would be in the middle of a text message, and if I got a phone call, I would never get back to that text message because it would just leave my mind. Mm-hmm. So that happened a couple times, and I thought, I cannot do that to people, because then they're calling me back saying, hey, I was waiting on that address. I was waiting on that phone number for that guy to go by and pick up that hay, or whatever the case was. So it got to where I had to say, I'm not doing that anymore. So I would answer my call on my phone. I would answer the call, and I'd say, hey, this is Lee. Give me 1 second. Let me finish this message. And so most of the time I say, okay. And I would just finish that message up and say, all right, I'm here. What's going on? What do you need? Whatever. I had a lot of calls into some very high up people. Like I met our governor on this. I met his staff on this. I have their phone numbers in my phone. I've talked to his policy guys several times about trying to get help for these guys. If you can think of them, I've probably talked to them just in this process. Well, my state rep calls, and I said, hang on 1 second. He said, hey, Lee. I said, yeah, hang on 1 second. I said, let me finish this message. I'll be right back to you. Well, it was a longer message that I had, and he says, Lee, this is your state rep, and he calls his name. I said, oh, okay, hang on. Almost done. And I don't know if it made him mad or not, but you just have to draw the line and say, I've got to do it this way to get this done, and not being rude, just hoping other people understand. Mm-hmm. Those priorities matter.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What would you tell somebody that's kind of searching or lost on what they want to do, whether they're just graduating high school, just graduating college, or got laid off from a job? And because you've been to all those places, what would you tell somebody there?
Well, again, very, very hard question. I think everyone has their ideas on what's important. They're going to have their framework, their frame of reference. And I don't know all of those, so I can't address all that. But for me, I always try to look forward. I always try to look ahead. And again, I didn't always hit it just right. But I think, again, if you can find something that you're really passionate about, then it sure makes it a lot more fun. And I think you need to, let me narrow that question so I can answer it. If someone says, I want to go into business, I'd like to go into business for myself, I can answer that. I would tell them, first of all, tell me how you're going to make a living doing it. In my book, I talk about downtown Rockwall and the rent being very high and somebody coming in trying to sell candles. And so my question to them would be, how many candles do you have to sell a day just to make your rent, your light bill, your water bill, your insurance? Figure that number up and tell me if you can really do that. Chances are, if you look at it that way, pay your taxes, pay someone to stand here if you're not going to stand here all day, you add all that up. How many candles do you have to sell a day? 100? Now tell me, you're going to sell 100 candles a day every day that you're open because you only want to be open 5 days a week? Tell me, how's that work? And they don't do that, and therefore they're gone in 3 months or they're gone in 6 months. And I can tell by looking at it when they open, they're never going to make it because they've not done that. Reality is one of those things that can be very elusive because we really want it to work. And so I would say ask yourself the hard questions as to whether or not this will really work or if this is a hobby. And if it's a hobby, there's nothing wrong with hobbies. Candle making's a great hobby for somebody. Do it on the side while you can make a living until you can do enough of your hobby to make a living with it. But don't try to go make a living with your hobby if you can't make a living every year and grow it. So I think being in tune with reality is very important when somebody's making those life decisions. You know, someone wants to go get a liberal arts degree. Okay, how is that going to pay $120,000 a year so you can live in this real world where rent's gone up 4 times as much as it did over the last 4 years? Okay, go do it. Sure, love you. But how's that going to work? And reality says, I don't know if you're going to get a job after 4 years. And you're going to have a pretty good size bill coming in every month on that loan that you got for school. Mm-hmm. So, you know, reality has to play a part in what we decide to do, whether or not it's really going to be worth our time to do it. And if people, parents, advisors, whoever person looks up to in their life, mentors and leaders, if they would ask those people those questions, I think we would save people a lot of hard times, a lot of embarrassing times, a lot of things that they could avoid. And then also the person coming into that situation has to be big enough to ask a leader or ask a mentor to help them, you know? So I think that those conversations are good. I think those conversations are critical for success. Find a leader, find someone in that field and ask them about it. Find someone in that, you know, in the direction you're wanting to go in. I've helped a lot of people in their cattle business. I talked to a guy this last week, a friend of mine. He said, I'm going to get in the cattle business. I said, what's your plan? He said, I got some heifers. Okay. 500-pound heifers. I said, okay. He said, and next year I'm going to get a bull. I said, okay. I said, you know, you're 2 to 3 years away from ever seeing a dollar, right? And you're going to have to feed them suckers every day and find grass for them and buy hay for them in the wintertime. And you're a long way from ever seeing a dollar bill come back. And you're not sure that the heifer's going to take, and you're not sure that heifer's going to be able to have that calf, and you're not sure that bull's going to be hot. And there's a lot of unsurety in your plan. I said, why don't you go out and buy some 8-7 month bred cows that you like, that are on a good bull, and within a couple months you got something you could turn around and sell right now. Go buy some pairs that those calves are already 200-300 pounds and 400 pounds and looking good and solid and cut and ready to go, and now you can see with your eyes what you're buying, and you're not having to buy all the feed that it took to get there and all the bulls that it took to get there and all the fence it took to get there. And he called me back the next day and he said, Lee, I didn't buy those heifers. He said, I'm going to reevaluate what we're doing. He said, I'm going to go after I'm looking at some bred cows right now that are on a good bull, and they're young cows. I think it's going to cost me a little bit more money to get into that. But he said, I'm going to be able to turn those around a little quicker and do something. I said, thanks for listening. This is just what you do when somebody comes to you, when they have the humility to come to somebody that's been in the business a while, and you just talk it back and forth. I didn't tell him what to do. I told him the price on those 500-pound heifers is a good price. I said, if you don't buy them, let me know. I'll go down there and get them. That wasn't the price on the heifers that was bad. That's a good deal. But was it a good deal for going into business? And so I think when you talk to people who are able to talk to you about a road they've already walked a few times, when you're at that decision point of go to college or not, go start a business or not, go into this business or not, I think there's wisdom in talking to somebody that could help you see a little clearer. Not necessarily tell anybody what to do, but definitely give them a little bit of a picture as to what they could be getting into.
Yeah, just ask the right questions. Even I think mentorship is huge, and learning from other people's mistakes. And if you want to go do something, like you said, go find somebody that's done it that you think is successful, who you want to be, and then say, how did you do it? And then you can say, maybe I don't want to work that hard, or maybe I don't want to do this or that. So then you just say, either I'm not going to do it at all, or I'm not going to be as successful as that person, or
I'm going to shift the way I'm approaching it to where I can. I talked to a guy the other day. He was wanting to get in the beef business. I said, all right. I mean, I'm always going to be for anybody going into cattle, anybody going into beef. I'm your mentor. I'm your champion. Whatever you want, I'm here. I'm on your side. And he said, well, I got some 900-pound steers that we're going to go get ready to butcher. I said, well, now? He said, yeah, they look good. They're 900 to 1,000. I said, now? You're going to do it now? He said, man, they're ready. I said, they're not ready. I said, don't do that. He said, well, we need to start turning a profit. We need to start putting these on the market. And I said, do you know what size steaks you're going to have on a 1,000-pound steer? I said, they're not going to compare to what people are used to buying in the store. I said, what's their fat caps look like? What's their tail heads look like? What are they looking like? He started telling me. I said, man, I don't want to be negative, but I don't think you want to launch your business with that product right there. And, I think he listened. I think he's reevaluating. I said, man, go put them on feed, go put them on some silage, whatever your program is. Go get them up to 14, 16, 1,800 pounds. And then you're going to, I know it's going to take you some time to do it, but when you do that and you turn out a steak that's marbled, that's the right size, that's not, a third or half the size of what it should be, I think you're going to have a lot happier customers. So people sometimes don't know what they don't know till they ask that question. And it's not about being a know-it-all either. It's just about helping somebody be successful when you see that that's probably not going to work out the way they think it is. Because it's sure better to get disappointed on the phone with me than disappointed when somebody says, I want my money back because you didn't give me half the meat that I said I was buying, or whatever. This isn't going to work for us, So, those, I could go on all day about just talking to folks, but I think there's a lot of value in that. And I'm always happy to take that time to at least talk about it, talk it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm always excited to ask a restaurant owner and somebody in the beef business this question, but what's your favorite restaurant besides your own?
Favorite restaurant? I eat out a lot. This camera angle right here is going to show everyone I eat out a lot. We enjoy Brazilian steakhouse. Texas de Brazil is a good one, and I enjoy Papados. some seafood. We eat out a lot, so I'm not a big,
hard to narrow it down.
It is. I'm not a huge steak guy. I eat steak a lot, but I'm not. To me, and this is may just rile up all of your listeners right here. To me, to go out and spend $100 on a steak, I can't always. I'm not a big extra aged guy. So the extra aging, 30-day age or whatever, to me that's not my favorite flavor. That aged. Mm-hmm. So I don't necessarily go out and spend $100 on a steak because I know that's going to be par for the course. It's going to be really, blue aged or something, and I'm not into that. So I like Papados because you go their grilled fish and some of the stuff that they do, and they have a really nice halibut, which is one of my favorite, or like a sea bass or something like that. Just a really nice red fish. I like that kind of stuff out because they usually do a red chili or some kind of a brown butter or something. Yeah. And then they have some nice sides that go with that. So that's kind of what I enjoy from when I go.
It's hard, like if you're in the beef business, like you said, if you think you got a very good product at home, then you just as soon go eat fish or something when you go eat out.
It really is. It's probably that. I have really good steaks at the house. If I wanted to go, and I know it's cooked right when I eat it. One of my big pet peeves is you go eat a steak. They always want to cook the steak the way they eat it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a rare guy. I'm really not. Now, I'm not a well done guy. I'm a medium. So perfect medium is whenever the grain changes, right? And you've got that's the juiciest point. That's the most juice released is at true medium, which is red throughout, but no purple. And so to me, that's the best flavor is when that grain changes from slick over to medium. So medium rare to me is not as good. I ate one last night. It was medium rare. It's fine. It's kind of chewy and it's kind of like eating sushi. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
You love it? Good for you, man. I'm happy for you. Eat it raw. I don't care. Eat it cold. I don't care. But for me, I like it medium. And if they send it out medium rare because they don't think I know what I want.
Yeah.
Right. If that steak cools off as it comes to your table and cools off as it goes back to the grill, it doesn't taste right when they put it back on the grill and get it to medium. It loses all of its flavor. It might as well be a hamburger patty. And so that's the challenge for me going to a nice restaurant. They always want to undercook it because they don't think I know what I'm doing. Like they don't think that I really know what I'm saying, or they're in a hurry.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we can just always bump it up on the grill for you later if that's not right. No, you can't. You can make me a new one because you ruined that one.
Yeah.
Well, that never goes over well either. So fish is usually cooked right.
Yeah, I've had people give me a hard time because if you're not, I like a steakhouse, like a nicer steakhouse, usually has good meat. But if you go somewhere else that doesn't have that reputation, then I'm too scared to, chance it. I don't want just a old select steak or something.
Especially for the price they're going to charge you.
So let's just eat chicken or fish or whatever it is, and just save that steak for a good one that you really like.
Halibut. I like a good halibut. To me, halibut's one of my favorite fish, and been up to Alaska a couple times fishing, and that was always my fish of choice to bring home is halibut. And so, if I'm going to go eat somewhere and pay $40 or $50 for a plate, halibut's fine. I'll take that.
Yeah. So tell us where everybody can find you. I know you sent me several websites that you have, and of course your Facebook page and everything. So
on Facebook, Lee Wells, and I happen to be wearing this shirt and hat. I didn't realize this till I got in the truck in my profile picture. So I don't know which camera I'm looking at. If it's this one, this is what I look like, similar to this on my Facebook profile. And then so it's Lee Wells, and then it'll say on there that owner of Wells Cattle Company. And then wellscattleco.com is the website for the restaurant. And then we'reheredoc.com for the documentary. And then I have another site. It's leewellsofficial.com, and that's my front-facing site for speaking and my podcast and book, stuff like that. So,
And your podcast.
yeah,
We're
we're on YouTube, the Ranch and Table on YouTube, on anywhere podcasts or audio's found, Apple, anywhere you can find it out there on the listing sites. It's all there. Or just go to Lee Wells Official, and then you can scroll down on that page, and all the links are there if you want to subscribe. And we'll be coming back with season 2. I would say in the next month or two. I'm ready to get back in and knock out some more episodes now that I've kind of got the production and the direction down for that film. That in the Aid to the West was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. One day I was sitting there, I was going to do another episode, and I sat there for probably 30 minutes just staring at my microphone in the wall, and I thought, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to put something out to people and ask them to take their time, 30, 40 minutes of their time, and it not be quality, not be worth their time. So I'm just not going to do it. We'll call it, and I'll come back when I have the time to put the effort into it. So I hope people recognize that and appreciate that. But I could have just kept going, I guess, and put stuff out there. I didn't want to do that. So
Right.
The Ranch and Table, and then those websites, they can probably put that on the screen for the post. But yeah, thanks for having me out.
Yeah, thanks
Appreciate
for
the opportunity.
thanks for coming out, and I think I'm excited to see that documentary. And like I said, I've been listening to your podcast, and just lots of different lessons and stuff in there. So
Thank you
for coming on, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.